Hello, this is Member Mission Presents, and our present for you this time, you're looking at Bill Lippert. Bill is a legislator in the state of Vermont from the town of Heinsberg. And how many other legislators are there?
There are 150 members of the Vermont House of Representatives, and there are 30 senators. I serve in the House of Representatives.
It's a 2-year term, and you've been, what year is this for you?
I've served 19 years.
Oh
and
boy.
Hope to serve 2 more. I'm up for re-election this fall.
I see. Well, this is a timely time to be asking you these kinds of questions. What are some of the challenges and the rewards that you face? Tell us about, you represent Heinsberg, which is a community of how many people?
4,000, 4,500 people, something along that
Okay.
line.
Yeah. All right. Now, what are some of the challenges you face as a legislator?
Well, we run for office as legislators, as representatives. We ask our community to elect us to represent them in making big decisions. And I think, frankly, much of what people decide is they look to ask someone to go and represent them, certainly about particular issues, but I think also often with a sense of we want to entrust this person to grapple with decisions that we all can't hear the testimony, we all can't make the decisions, but we must have people make these decisions on our behalf. And one of the challenges is, frankly, we come to the legislature with differing points of view, sometimes very strongly held differing points of view.
Yes.
And one of the challenges is being able to be there in a sufficiently collaborative way that we actually move forward on behalf of Vermonters, that we talk about our differences. In fact, sometimes we fight about our differences. I'll just acknowledge that. But I think it's a very civil process in the sense that I'll share something. Someone looked at the number of bills that we vote out of our committees that go out to the floor for debate. And what the headlines of the newspapers usually show is that we're always fighting and we're always disagreeing. But someone actually analyzed the votes that come out of committee, and it was something like 80 to 90% of all the bills that we send out from the committees to the floor come out with a unanimous vote from the committees. Now, every committee is made up of the differing political members of different political parties.
Yeah, that's important to hear.
So, and it's part of the story that doesn't get told very much, because newspapers and the evening news are not interested in telling you about just what's going well. They're interested in controversy and differences. So one of the challenges is working together collaboratively, and I think in Vermont we actually have achieved that at a very high level. But one of the other challenges is making decisions when a really difficult issue is in front of us, sometimes called issues of conscience. And in most cases, our political parties step back from an issue of conscience and don't try to influence us to vote one way or the other. But these are issues often where you have to really look inside yourself as well as look to your community and how you're going to represent your community. And many of my colleagues over the years have probably faced greater challenges even than I have, because an issue that I've been deeply involved with over the years has been the creation and acknowledgement of legal recognition for same-sex couples. I'm a gay man. I have lived with my partner for 23 years. We're now married. But marriage was not a possibility in our lives until 2009 in Vermont, and when we created civil unions in 2000, we were the first state in the country to offer legal recognition to same-sex couples. It caused a huge, huge social and political controversy in the state of Vermont.
Sure.
And it was an issue of conscience. It was an issue that did not just divide by political party. And it was an issue where we were also, many of my colleagues were faced with making the decision whether or not to support the creation of this new institution of legal recognition for same-sex couples, despite the fact that numbers of them knew it might be the end of their political career.
And it was for several of them?
It was for well more than a dozen, I think as many as 17.
That's a lot.
Some very close, dear political friends who I worked with closely said to me that they wrestled, they lost sleep, and they finally decided that based on everything they had learned, all the testimony they heard, and quite honestly, the interactions with me and other members of the gay and lesbian community, they had themselves come to the conclusion that it was the right thing to do, despite the pressures on them politically to not vote for it. This was courage at its highest level.
Surely.
I really look to many of my colleagues who made those decisions, who took those votes as my heroes, and I have the deepest appreciation for what they went through.
We have to watch time
Yes.
for our listeners and the like. That's probably one of the rewards as well.
It is. One of the great rewards is being able to serve with people who struggle that deeply and are willing to make that kind of sacrifice when necessary for an issue of great social importance. And the additional reward being hearing from so many couples whose lives were changed as we created legal recognition and social recognition.
Would you touch briefly, you have some ministerial background in your parents, as I recall.
I do. My father
Yes.
is now deceased, and my mother. But my father was a United Methodist minister, and my mother and father really shared their ministry. And I can tell you that, because I think this may be of interest to folks who are listening, that the witness that my parents showed in their ministry, in their active, specific ministry within the church, really infused my upbringing, even though I am not actively participating in a particular church today. But I'd have to say, and I've used the phrase, that I feel like I secularized my parents' ministry. I took their ministry and brought it into my life without it being a particular ministry within the church per se.
Could you kind of pinpoint the focus of Jesus' teaching and that ministry that they carried on and that you carry on? Is there some basic way to state it, maybe?
Well, I could succinctly say that the teachings of Jesus, which my parents shared with me and the church and the congregation, I believe are a radical set of principles. Ones which, if lived fully, would transform all of our lives and society. And I believe that there's probably been no greater influence on my personal life and subsequently on my political life. And it has taken the form, I think, in many ways, of leaving the world a better place than you found it, of doing unto others as you would have them do unto you. I think the teachings in the Gospels are one of justice and caring and love. And I believe it would be fair to say that those are at the heart of what informs my work in the world and including my political work.
That's a nice way to put it. And you used the word, I've heard you in other places talk about secularizing it. That is, taking it into the world, which is a grand word to kind of draw things to a close and say thank you so much, Bill Lippert, for sharing in depth and richness this part of your story.
Well, thank you for asking.